but a lot of the blame is a team that didn't know how to handle a superstar player who comes from another country, and you're getting essentially miscommunication. Now I'm going to completely flip the page to something else that Ken talked about on the show. And this is a different topic, but a good one for the player perspective on Shohei Ohtani. He took a lot of time in doing more background research on what's called the insular relationships that protected Shohei Ohtani until they didn't. And you can see Ohtani, his former interpreter, Ipe Mizuhara, who's a criminal who stole a lot of money from Shohei. And then Ohtani's agent, Nez Bolello, he's been his agent since he came over to the United States. And you can see in the article that Nez is definitely spending even more time with Ohtani. And it sounded like it was a tricky situation where Ohtani wanted his one bank account to be private, one of the bank accounts. And if you're an agent, you're like, yeah, I don't want to lose this player, but this sounds shady, but I don't know what to do. You can see that in the article. I wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, I learned a lot in this one. Ken said an industry source briefed on his earnings turned down the Sportico report in March that estimated he was making $65 million a year just on endorsements. Ken's source said $100 million plus per year on endorsements for Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he's the face of sports in Japan. $100 million plus. That one stood out to me. The Doc Roberts comment, he has blossomed. He's become way more independent, way more open, which is ironic given that the person he trusted most deceived him. We've seen his true personality come out. I think with that, he's happier than he's ever been. It sounded like someone was very, very controlling. Like anything had to go through Ipe, essentially, even just an ask for a simple autograph. And there were a ton of no's. And Ken even alluded to the fact that the Angels didn't know if he was getting the requests, even the small ones, because it would often go through either agent and or interpreter. And still interpreter was the boss, essentially, because he's the only one that could translate from English to Japanese. And so whatever he said when he had a private combo with Ohtani, he'd come back out and be like, yeah, this is what Ohtani said. Now, Nez Bolello, who's the agent for Ohtani, has really taken control. And he is a very known as kind of a helicopter agent as well, kind of controls everything. He told the Dodgers the other day that he's not going to do any more pregame media sessions. So what did you guys learn from this one?
Well, first, when you said it, the $65 million and plus on it, so I guess that's after taxes. He took home $65 million. That's the first thing I thought of. Like, listen, that's he might have given you the exact amount he got at the end instead of. Listen, it's an incredible amount of money. I mean, just for endorsements. I think Rob Gronkowski said he never spent any money that he made from contracts. It was always off the field money and stuff like that, which is incredible. And, the guy, if he can make all that, he deserves it all. And I feel like there's going to be more stuff that comes out from this. Ken's a great insider, but was he working with other people? And this is all just, we don't know. Was he I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff that could come out from this whole thing. He went home. He had an apartment in the parking lot, it says in this article. Like, what was he really doing? Like, was he just a lonely guy, or was he, trying to do other things with Shohei behind his back? So there's still more pieces to this puzzle, in my opinion.
I think it's sad to hear that he was very sheltered, because we heard how much he was not very available to the media in Anaheim. And granted, he was busy, and we kind of took that as like, okay, he doesn't want to be available. But if a criminal takes money from you, I have a hard time believing, well, that was the only thing that he was taking. That was the only thing that he was manipulating. Like, if he's bringing in $100 million per season, anywhere from 65 to 100 million, and you have somebody taking your money from you, you have full trust. You have full trust from Mizuhara. And you look at it from what kind of player he was in Anaheim to what he is now. Is this a relief for him, and that's why he's continuing to improve? Is it just because he's not pitching that he's having such a good season? Only time will tell, but I really feel bad for Shohei if he was deceived that much. But I feel great for him that now he is more relaxed, and Doc said he's blossomed. So I think I think it's something that we've never seen, but somehow we still don't have all the information yet. But more and more come out every single day. The article, I want to finish the article. I haven't read the rest of it yet.
The article's great. It's just excellent insight. And yeah, you do continue to understand the situation and feel bad, like you said, Kratz, for a player that couldn't communicate with everyone. And he is learning English. He's getting better on that front, but he's not fluent. And when you have someone that's like, I got it, and he's telling you everything, I don't know what else you're supposed to do. And he became such a vital component of his life. I mean, he did everything. You know, Doc was even talking about how he's got to ride his own car now. You know, he's got to drive his own car. Ohtani, like Ippei did everything for him. I know you got something. The quote that also stood out was how he wasn't involved with anything team-wise either. And I don't think that was Ohtani's choice, but like they didn't even ask him fantasy football, anything, right? Fun with the team to all do together. And they said also on the betting side, they're like, he couldn't even ID Patrick Mahomes. This dude does not care about anything but baseball and a little bit of video games. The quote was, all he cared about was playing his video game on his phone. This was from an Angels person. Most of the people that Ken spoke with were obviously anonymous, so they could speak freely. And then the Angels person said, and then it was baseball. So that was it. But I don't think the asks actually got over to him.
That's a fair assessment too. If you've ever been to another country, and not just on vacation, you know, they cater to you, you're on a ship. Oh, hey, you know, make sure you take care of this. You're living in a country that you do not know the language fluently. You are reliant on your interpreter. When we lived in the Dominican for essentially about 8 weeks, just a little under 8 weeks, I was fortunate. I knew Spanish. My wife knew Spanish. It was still hard. And so that assimilation into the environment that you're in is so tough. And now think about doing it in the big leagues. And you are trusting that interpreter. I didn't drive when I was in the DR, so I understand this. I don't understand it from a multi-hundreds of millions of dollars standpoint. I understand it in a person, people-to-people standpoint. You have to trust your interpreter. Hey, I want to get tickets to my family. Oh, okay, we'll make sure we get tickets. Like, you're trusting that kind of stuff. And then there's $100 million mixed in a year. You have to trust them with that too.
All we have is trust. And I think you, Scott, myself, and others can understand, like, that's the biggest thing. Family, friendships, and trust when it comes to people. And when you're walking on eggshells or you're like in between, you always got to go with your gut. And that's something I've always learned. Like, if my gut's telling me something's wrong, maybe I'd tell somebody else. But maybe he was in that circumstance where he did trust him a little too much. You know, he didn't really look at the bank statements too often. And the guy did what he pleased. And that's the saddest part.
You know what I think about from the offseason? Our conversation with former Rockies GM Dan O'Dowd. He joined us on FT around when, you know, I think Ohtani was either about to sign or it might have been right after he had signed. And he pointed out a weirdness with the Angels that you didn't truly understand at the time, but it makes more sense now. He was like, we have to get away from it being one and the rest in the clubhouse. Yep. And that's the culture that was created in Anaheim. At the time, the Angels probably caught too much flack for that, when really the biggest problem was his right-hand man. I'm not saying that there's no blame on the team side, but a lot of the blame is a team that didn't know how to handle a superstar player who comes from another country, and you're getting essentially miscommunication from a dude who's a total fraud, as in his interpreter.
And also, again, so people can understand if they heard who's the one that picks these interpreters.
Well, Ohtani did in this. Sometimes it's the team. This time, Ippei, the former interpreter, got himself involved early on. They met each other when Ippei was overseas as a translator or an interpreter for some American players in Japan.
He also lied about that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He lied about everything.
It's tough.
His resume was full of crap. And in this story, Ken said they did background checks. The Angels did. And also there was some blame put on, you know, Ohtani's agent. They're like, how do you let this dude do the private bank account? Like I mentioned, you're worried about losing him. He keeps telling you, I want my own private bank account. And then they had a separate one too. But you see in this story, there were multiple checks that tried to get through to him, even for tax purposes, because they're like, hey, dude, I understand you want some things to be private, but we need to see this so that we can report it accurately for tax purposes. So a bookkeeper that was employed by Ohtani's agent expressed concern about tax liability. A financial advisor sought more info for an investment profile. An accountant wanted to make sure he was filing the proper returns. And they said Ipe, his former interpreter, told them all the same thing. He wants this particular account to be private. Do not disturb him about this. What were they supposed to do? It's not technically their right to just crack open his account. They can only advise him and say, hey, dude, this could be a problem. We're letting you know. And he was like, cool, gotcha. Still my private account. But really, he wasn't saying that.
He wasn't saying it. eBay was saying it. So it makes like it's bringing more things into light and kind of getting the Angels off the hook a little bit in the sense that how can you let a guy never talk? Well, maybe Ipe was never giving him the messages. Ipe was always trying to stay on the side. I mean, it is a crazy dynamic that you didn't think you'd see.
But it's easy to get away with the language, guys. That's the thing.
Yeah,
not easy, but it's much easier to get away with the language.
Even if they want deep, but like, hey, listen, I don't trust what's going on. Ask him in Japanese about this secret bank account, and he could be like, he could tell them in Japanese, like, oh, they just want to make sure everything's okay, how you living. Like, he can easily go on around the truth if there's nobody else that can interpret Japanese. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Yeah. How'd you guys do with teammates that required an interpreter? I mean, probably even more so for you, Kratz, because you probably had to catch some guys where you weren't totally understanding what they were saying. I know, you can get down to the basics, but did you guys have any teammates that you wanted to communicate more with but couldn't because of the language barrier?
No. The interpreters, and maybe I was naive too. I was naive with the interpreters.
No, you weren't.
I went out of my way to learn more about Nori Aoki, learn more about Masahiro Tanaka. Great dudes. They're interpreters. Awesome. Shingo, Masahiro Tanaka's interpreter. I still keep in touch with him. He's Yu's interpreter, Yu Darvish's interpreter. And like you go out of your way to make those relationships. I never once was like, man, I wish I could really get my feeling across or get my, send a message to Masa or send a message to Nori. I totally could. There was never one situation where I was like, man, I wouldn't trust this guy. And maybe that's naive by me. I don't mind being naive and trusting people ahead of time, but I would have done the same thing with Shohei.
Last piece of the puzzle, and then we'll go. How do you prevent this from happening in the future? That's the only thing. I always think about that. We have all these interesting scandals in baseball or problems like the injuries for arms, but it's tough to come up with a solution. Could the same thing happen again? Probably. If you have a superstar and everyone's a little bit afraid of him and there's one right-hand man who's controlling, I mean, everyone's probably seen a music flick where you're following, Elton John or Queen or one of those dudes, and they've got a bad person by their side, and they're just kind of wrecking stuff. Just saying, it's tough to monitor it.
Yeah, just keep everything written down. Go with them to the bank. I mean, have somebody. It's tough.
I don't think you can prevent this as a team. If you're talking about as a team,
yes, as a team, like the league, what can they do?
Background checks. I mean, how much can you background check a guy? You're background checking players. You're background checking employees, and Ipe was a employee of the team. But you can't just assume somebody's bad. I don't know. I don't know. It's possible you can get duped again.
Yeah. My only idea is that you can't actually set anything in stone, but you can look back at this case as an example for future players and say, this happened in the past. I love your interpreter to death if you have someone that's this close to you, but let's put a few of the really big things on Google Translate so you have a copy of this conversation. It'll be all kept private, but we're talking about your bank account. We just want you to have this. Here it is, all in English and translated in Japanese. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I'm not telling you what to do. Just want this here so you can see this. It's the only thing.
That's a lot. That's a lot of documents. No way did Todd ever read every single page of his contract when he signed it, or his you trust the people when they're like initials here, here, sign here. We do it all the time,
and we don't. I don't know the word usage either for mostly all that thing anyway. That's why they go to school for all that stuff.
Right, and you kind of trust them.
You have to.
And we're in a different realm. Professional sports is a different realm. They're making tons of money. And Shohei is at the top of that class.
Okay, so if you watch this afterward, right? If you're catching this afterward and you're seeing it on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you have some ideas and thoughts about this. Drop a little comment if you made it this far. All right, everyone watching on YouTube right now. Time to give a little love to AG1. They've been a longtime sponsor for us over the summer months. So drinkag1.com/foul is the code. I'll let you know what that gets you in just a moment. But Kratz, have you been traveling with your travel packets?
Oh, 100%. I'm almost out of my travel packets. I think I have 3 more, but I think my next travel is coming at the end of this week, so it's only like 3 or 4 days, so I think I'll be good. But what I love about it, my kids, for some reason, when they're taking like multivitamins or the things that like help, just like supplementing their health, I'm like, can you guys please just take it? And they're like, can I just have an AG1? I'm like, yeah. Some reason, like it's sitting in the fridge at top of the fridge, and they just scoop it into their shaker. I don't know if they feel like they're a boss with it, but anytime I can get my kids to use it, I'm like, perfect.
There you go. AG1 contains ingredients that support sustained energy so you can be the best version of yourself each and every day. And also, like Kratz mentioned, if you've been messing around with a million different multivitamins and all that, and it's just annoying and confusing, you don't have to do that anymore. It's a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization. That's big for me, stress management, immune support. And since 2010, they've led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. Let's go over the code. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. You can get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and those travel packs. You get 5 of them with your first purchase if you use the website drinkag1.com/foul. Again, that's drinkag1.com/foul. FT fam. We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.